Well, I think we've all. Well, you do a lot of reviews on pedals and stuff,
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
and there's one trap that I fell into, and I think every guitarist has fallen into, and that is, you want to sound like this, you have to have that gear.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you go out and you spend a fortune, and you're like, I'm getting closer, and you never reach it. And then one day, after years and years of having a bunch of buyer's remorse, you end up realizing it's here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's here. And because I was trying to get Eddie Van Halen's tone for years, and I bought all of his amps, I bought all of his guitars, I bought all of his pedals, I read all the magazines trying to do the Variac, I did all that shit, and I always sounded like me.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I did the same thing when in the early days of my playing. I was really influenced by Clapton's sort of '90s blues, not his Cream stuff so much. But I went out, got the 335, got it. Well, I couldn't afford the amp that he was playing, obviously, but I found out it was just you're never going to be able to get that. And not only, sometimes CDs or live DVDs aren't always the best reference for tone as well, because a lot of that stuff's produced, and a lot of people don't realize that the sound that might be on stage might not be what you're getting on the DVD a lot of the time as well. So for me, I guess the only way you're going to sound similar to someone is if you really spend like a lifetime trying to replicate or emulate that sort of sound. But on the most part, people will still sound like themselves. I think, a great example is Eric Clapton, ripped off all the Freddie King licks under the sun, and sounds complete. Like, while you could play certain songs and you can pick the same licks out of a lot of them, or blues riffs or whatever, they do sound completely different, even though he's playing basically some of the same runs. So he ended up, I think, taking, and like Stevie Ray Vaughan's another great example of that. Taking the Albert King thing and the Jimi Hendrix thing and coming out with something that was, I don't want to say unique, but it was, it was his version of all of that stuff. It wasn't Albert King. If you hear Albert King and Stevie Ray, they do sound pretty different to each other, even though Stevie's playing a lot of the Albert King style. You can never replicate that to the exact. So gear's definitely not going to help in that.
Right. Well, it kind of makes you wonder, like, if you had two twins that played the guitar, would they sound the same or similar? And then if you separated them at birth and they learned how to play, and then you got them together, would they sound the same? This is how you got to do the test.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there's so much to how you're fretting, how you're bending, and how you're picking, and where you're picking, and your timing, and there's just so much to it. It's like, because I know it's like, even like when I'm trying to play along with a song, and I know I've got the timing right, it still doesn't quite sound right. You know what I mean? And it's just like, how in the hell is that person doing that? How are they able? And it has something to do with how long they're holding that note and releasing it.
Yeah, it's a finesse thing as well as it would be just their own touch. They're not thinking about
Absolutely.
It's just they're doing it that way that works for them. So I think for years I looked to, like, Knopfler's one of my big influences as well. I really love what he does, and some of his stuff is like totally still out of my range of ability, but some of it I've managed to kind of get the feel for. But even 15 years later, I still can't just master that finesse / touch on a couple of his really well-known songs, and it's just it's just the way that it is. I think people have got to.
Well, I think that some of the greatest guitar players are the ones that were self-taught. They didn't know what they were doing, and they didn't know that they were breaking the rules. And Knopfler,
it's
whatever,
like that.
he had a very similar story to a lot of people that became great guitarists. Didn't have a lot of money, got a cheap guitar, just kept practicing, doing things, trying to figure out how to do this. And then the next thing you know, people are like, how in the hell do you do that? Right? And he's like, well, isn't this what everybody does? Jerry Reed is another person.
He's fantastic.
And there's not many people at all that can do what Jerry Reed did. Eddie Van Halen.
And sing like that as well at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a song he's got with Chet Atkins on. Oh, there's a few of them with Jerry Reed and Chet Atkins on YouTube where Jerry's singing and
Uh,
playing the most complicated stuff. Like, and he makes it look so easy. I love that guy's voice. And he's in
yeah.
uh, I've forgotten the movie. What's it called? The Smokey and the
Smokey and the
Bandit.
Bandit.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
yeah. He, Jerry Reed, his stuff was so complex. As he got older, he forgot how to play his own stuff.
Yeah.
And he would have to sit there and try to figure it out. And he'd be like, well, how in the hell do you do that, son? He'd be sitting there trying to figure it out and
Yeah.
couldn't do it. But it seems like a lot of the greatest guitarists really are they don't know what they're doing. And that's what makes them great, because it's everybody else is they're trying to follow this pattern.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you can tell, like, I mean, it's like, this is going to piss some people off. Steve Vai has fantastic talent. He's got fantastic skill, but to me at least, he's too, like, I call it MIDI. Like, he's too robotic. Like there's something about it where it's too accurate. Like, there's just something about it. I just can't, I can't get into it.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like there's too many rules, and he follows them, and he tries to master every little thing. And that comes out in his playing, and it sounds great. And then you compare him to somebody like Joe Satriani, who's more about the feel of it. And he's accurate as hell too, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't feel like he has to be too flashy to get this to get the message across. And it's all about feeling and interaction.
Yeah, I think feelings are probably the biggest part. Whether or not you're coming from a technical or fast chops background, or you're coming from a simple blues background, I think the feel will always end up sounding better to most people who kind of listen to it like that. I mean, look at B.B. King, 5 licks, done. And they feel good, They sound good. There's a whole lot of great players out there that, some of my favorite players, and I it's the guitar player from White Zombie back in the old days. Like, that guy was a monster guitar player, and I don't know if he was technical or not, but what he did felt great for that style of music. Like, he just seemed to pick the best runs, the best notes, and put it all together. And it had a lot of feel. And yeah, there's a lot of that. That's the way I like to listen to things too. If things are too clinical or too, they just lack that. They just lack that sort of what's the word? Just that feel or the the deep.
Yeah, well, it should grab you. I was talking to a guitarist, a friend of mine in Florida, a guy named Rob Sinclair, and we were talking about Steve Vai, because he's the guy we both pick on, right? And I say that people like Steve Vai, Steve Vai has what I call riff Tourette's, right? Where he'll sit there, he'll be playing, you've got the groove, you're getting into it, then all of a sudden he goes off and he does something, and it doesn't really fit with what he just did, and then he comes back again.
Yeah.
And it's just like Tourette's, and it's just like
That's the
it's
jazz.
like you had me. Yeah, it's like you had. Well, it's the Frank Zappa. I think I think he spent too much time with Frank Zappa. But he. And like I said, I think that he's a fantastic player and stuff. I just can't get into his playing. Paul Gilbert, he does something a little similar, but his is easier to like grasp.
Yeah.
Even though he's going all over the place and playing like a monster, it's easier to get the feel of the music, I think.
Yeah, cool.